Today you'll see an amazing dress. It's just pull on relaxed fit with a really beautiful exposed facing that is super unique. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing. I'm over here in Chile, the south of Chile at my parents' house. I usually come in the summer. It's still a beautiful garden over here. It's just that it's pretty cold. I'm all nice and cozy for this short while that I'm going to be talking to you outside. I'm super excited to share a woven pattern with you. This is from Sinclair Patterns and it's called Jenna Kaftan. When I think of a kaftan though, I think of more like a swimsuit cover-up or something pretty shapeless, which is not the case here. So let me describe. You'll see the line out here. Super easy to just pull on over your head. No zippers, no buttons, no closures like that. Nice V neckline. And the neckline is not low. It's got a gorgeous exposed facing as you can see there. It's nice and wide, all top stitched all the way to here. Separate bodice, separate skirt united, and in between there's a casing, drawstring in there, so that means you can adjust it to your waist. And we all love an adjustable waist moment because it's just the best thing. The skirt is A-lined. The length of the skirt can be pretty short if you want to. There's several length lines there above the knee, at the knee. You can do a midi. If you do the longest version, you can add slits on the side. And of course, you can add inseam pockets if that's what you like. I never do that, but the option is always there. And then for the sleeves, you can make it sleeveless. You can do it with binding. I left it as is. I like it. I don't have gaping issues. It's not low cut either. Otherwise, you can sew an elbow length sleeve. And to that one, you can add a little flounce. So there's quite a few options there for this part. I did mine sleeveless because I'm just a sleeveless person. I get the most wear out of my sleeveless garments because I live in Brazil. 10.5 months out of the year, I'm hot. My sleeveless garments just get the most wear. It's just the most practical thing for me. Don't think I don't like sleeves. I just enjoy my free arms. Because the Jenna is a brand new pattern at Sinclair Patterns, it's 27% off through the 20th of July. After the sale is over on the site, the regular sale, I was given a code by the owner of Sinclair Patterns that I'm going to add after the sale is over so that you can keep getting it at the same discounted price for a longer period of time. So that's really cool. I love that. You can find my affiliate link right at the top of the comment section. Easy to find. If you end up clicking on it and purchasing, I do receive a small commission back from the designer, but it doesn't cost you anything extra to do that. If you do want to support me that way, I really appreciate it. It makes a huge difference to the work that I do here on YouTube. What I do here on YouTube has a high cost in production, and yeah, it's a high cost to bring you these videos. So any support like that is really welcome. So I thank you if you use my code. For fabric, light to medium weight woven fabric, I really would not stray from the woven fabrics. I think if you wanted to make this in a knit, it would just overcomplicate yourself, especially the facing finish. I don't think it would look amazing with a knit. And I know sometimes I get questions, what about a structured knit like a ponte? I just think it would end up too bulky, and especially the design has a drawstring and casing. I think it would look really bulky with a heavy structured knit. So let's keep it light to medium weight wovens. Drape is not required, but in my case, I think it's desired because of the casing and the drawstring that you bring it in, you get a bit of gathers there. I think it just looks nicer with a drapey fabric, but that is totally personal preference. So you could use 100% linen, cotton lawn, poplin, chambray, even a light denim if you just want a more structured look. It would make sewing the facing and the bodice easy. If you want drapey like I do, you could go for rayon, rayon twill, rayon crepe, rayon linen blend, tencel twill. Other notions you need, just one is some fusible interfacing for the facing pieces. Now I do a little trick with a drawstring where I use a little bit of 1/4 inch elastic, about 20 inches, but that's just something extra that I do. Sizing from 0 to 30 US, but before you choose your size and look at the measurements chart, you need to choose your height first because there's a petite, a regular, and a tall file. That's super helpful, especially for petites and tall people. It just makes the fit so much better. So that is really helpful. You also have cup sizes in this pattern. You have an AB cup size, CD, EF, different bodices and front skirt pieces to fit that bust cup. So that is extremely helpful. Remember, sewing bust cup sizes are different. You measure your upper bust and your full bust, figure out what the difference in circumference is to figure that out, and then you choose your cup size. And the ease around the bust here is around 2 inches. At the waist, you have plenty of ease because you have the drawstring and casing, you know, there's a nice amount of ease, and same as the hips. So I would really worry about choosing your hip size and your bust size. If your waist size is a little bigger than your hips or something, I wouldn't worry too much. I'm sewing right now at Sinclair Patterns, a size 14 with the toe file. Measurements fit pretty much there and don't have to blend sizes. Fitting adjustments, really small fitting adjustment that I did. Whenever I sew, even if I've sewn the same brand before, I do some quick flat pattern measurements, especially to figure out bodice lengths. I always double check that. And for this one, I thought the front bodice was a little long, but I'm doing these air quotes here because remember, this is a style that has a casing and drawstring. Whenever you see that type of style, you want the bodice to be a little bit longer, so then you pull it in, it'll blouse over a little bit. Otherwise, it would end up sort of riding up when you tug it closer to the waist. So in this case, I have about an inch of vertical ease, which I thought was fine. But in the back, I thought it was too much vertical ease for my measurement here from the base of my neck down to the small of my back. So I did a small sway back adjustment on the bodice at the back, 5/8 of an inch only in the center back, tapering to the same length at the side. So yeah, it took me like 2 seconds to do my personal fitting adjustments, and then I was pretty confident. So confident that I never tried on the dress until the very end. It's so satisfying to have that faith. It's amazing. There's no sort of sneaky voice in my head saying, is it going to fit? I know it's going to fit. I'm really confident. So it was a great experience like that. For the sewing, I'm going to show you the basics of constructing the bodice, including that exposed facing, because that's a little bit different. And I'm also going to show you how this casing is sewn onto the skirt, which is super easy. But it might be different to the way that you've done it before, because there's so many ways you can do that. So let's hop into the sewing. Make sure you notice that there's different seam allowances here. For the main seams like shoulders and sides, you use 5/8, but anything to do with the neckline is going to be 3/8 of an inch. Here are the pattern pieces for the Jenna from Sinclair Patterns. These are bodice pieces. I'll show you the skirt pieces afterwards. This is the front piece. There is a center front seam right there, and there is a waist stud. That's sort of a combination between a side bust stud and a waist stud. So that's why it looks a little swinging to the side right there. I'm doing the CD cup size. This is the back. It's cut on the fold. And then these are exposed facings. This is the front one, that is the back one. Those are already interfaced. I blocked fused those, so that's ready. And then these little long pieces, one is the casing and one is the drawstring. These are the skirt pieces. They're both cut on the fold. They're slightly A-lined. They're going to fit the bodice on the top. This is the front. And for each cup size option that you use, you're going to have a front piece so that it matches the width of the front right there. But then the back piece is the same for any cup size that you use. There's several cut lines here for you to choose your preferred length. As always, because it's a woven project, I'm going to stay stitch this neckline. I'm starting with a V on the front from the shoulder into the center, and then the other layer from the shoulder into the center to keep them symmetrical. The seam allowance we're going to use later to sew on the facing is 3/8, so I'm going slightly smaller than that here. Regular stitch length. And I'm going to repeat that on the other front. For the back, I'm going from the shoulder into the center and then flipping the fabric and going from the shoulder into the center, also to keep it symmetrical, so in 2 stages. This pattern has the option of adding sleeves, and it can also be sleeveless. So because I'm planning to make it sleeveless, I'm also going to stay stitch the armhole, which I'm not going to show here, but just know that I'm doing it from the shoulder to the side seams for all of these. Next, I'm going to sew these 2 waist darts on the front. These are the CD darts. I'm starting from the tip and then going off to the widest part like usual. Not back tucking at the front, just leaving the thread so we can knot it by hand later. And then there's another one to do. It's all the same. Later for the seams, we have French seams as an option, but I'm just going to serge and press open. My fabric is not too lightweight, so I'm not going with that option. So I'm just serging every edge that I can, shoulders, side seams, all the things. What you don't need to serge are the center seams for the bodice. So just leave those raw because those will end up being enclosed. Now we have simple shoulder seams to sew. These are sewn at 5/8 seam allowance. This is the back facing, and now we're going to take our front facing and put it on top right sides together, and we're going to get these sewn as well. This is how it should look like. These V sections in the center and these outer sections like this. So let's just get this pinned sewn also at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to go and press that, and then all along the outer edge I'm going to do a guide stitch at 3/8 of an inch just to make it easier to press the outer edge in. This facing is actually going to be on the outside of the dress, so it needs to turn out very accurate. I've been to the iron and pressed the outer edge of the facing inwards by 3/8. I've already removed my guide stitch, but I've also done a little basting stitch to hold it in place because this is rayon, you know, it's going to move a little bit. I'm not going to trust it. So I've done that. Now on this edge here where the V is, on this outer edge, I just did a few snips on that section to release the tension. You can see how it opens up there. So if you didn't do those snips, it would be really, really tight right there. So I suggest you do that. The rest is very simple. It's just folded in normal. Now I'm going to pin this to the neckline of the main bodice, but it's a little different. Here I have the bodice on the table. Notice that it's wrong sides up. Now we need to put the facing right here, also wrong sides up. It looks really wrong, but remember this is an exposed facing that's going to be flipped to the front. So right side of the facing touching the wrong side of the bodice here, and I'm going to start aligning at the center back right here where the curve is. Then aligning at the shoulder seams, getting to the V right here. That's all we need to align. The centers are going to be done later. Okay, here in the center you can see there's a little dot. That's actually just the intersection of seam allowances here. For the whole pattern we're using 5/8, but for the neckline and the center front it's going to be 3/8. So I'm going to start exactly on that dot, and I'm not going to go past that right there and then go up the neckline. You can see there's a little mark on the facing that's going to match the little mark on the neckline right here. Then you match the shoulders, and the same on this side. Here's a little dot right here. So I'm just going to get this sewn 3/8 seam allowance. Remember, both of them are wrong sides up. Now I'm going to do some snips here. It is a V, but it's slightly rounded, so I am going to release the tension here. Once I pass these shoulder seams, it gets very rounded here on the back, so those are a little bit closer together. And then we're going to understitch. Understitch is going to be a little bit different as well. So when we extend this is going to look so wrong because we have wrong side of the fabric, right side of the fabric, but this is correct. Remember, this facing is going to come over to the front. So extend this and push the seam allowance underneath the bodice. So from this side, the facing should look totally extended like that. And that is where we're going to understitch. That's going to help keep this neckline super neat and this wrong side never be seen. Seam allowance tucked in, facing towards the bodice. I'm not going to go to the very end here. I'm going to stop a little forward so it doesn't get in the way of this intersection later. I'm going to head to the iron now and just press the neckline so that it's nice and set. You can see that when we press it, the understitching makes the seam roll to the inside by about 1/8 of an inch. So when you wear the garment, just this is going to be seen. So it's going to look super neat. I suggest you don't skip the understitching. This is how the neckline's looking so far. I've just flipped it and pressed it. So it's like this. See? Now this is loose, and on the inside it looks like that. So that's why we were sewing it and it looked so wrong. So what we have to do now is sew the center front, but we're going to sew it in two separate sections, the bodice in one section, the facing in one section, and we're going to have a little intersection of seams there, not as hard as you think. Once that is done, then we top stitch all of this around. Of course, I'm going to be hand basting that, And that's how it's done. Super nice. Love it. Okay, here I'm on the table. I'm going to get these facings and sew them first. You could sew the center front bodice first. It doesn't really matter. But what we're going to do is just align these here. And you can see there's this intersection point right here. The dot where I sewed up to on both sides. So I'm going to align and put a pin through this dot and coming out through the dot on the other side so that I can start sewing on the exact same point right there. So that's how I'm going to sew the facings together. From that dot down the center. At the dot, I'm not going to back tack. I'm just going to leave thread and reinforce it by hand so it turns out less bulky. 3/8 seam allowance. Then we press it open and then we sew the center front of the bodice in the exact same way. So at that dot on the top, we're going to have an intersection of seam allowances and it's going to give you a really nice V point center right there. Okay, here at the top, I didn't reinforce and I brought the thread to this side so that they're both together here. And now I'm just going to knot it twice. And that's how I'm going to have that intersection with less bulk than if I'd gone back and forth there. I think knotting it twice is enough to reinforce. So here's the facing sewn, and now we have over here the bodice. It's going to look super wrong because we're going to sew it wrong sides together. So it's literally the same thing, just sewing the center front up to this dot right there where all the seams intersect. So it's going to look sort of like this. I'm going to flip it and I'm going to start again where I want to start because I feel I can control where the needle goes in at the beginning. So I can clearly see where the seam is and where I need to poke my needle right there in that little dot. And again, I'm not going to back tuck there. I'm just going to leave the thread so I can knot it by hand just like I did on the facing side. Then I'm going to head to the iron and press these both seams open. And then you're going to see how the V neckline is going to lie beautifully, very nicely. Again, right here, I'm just going to reinforce this, knot it by hand. Okay, how gorgeous is this? Open it up, pressed, all that intersection there. And then we get this gorgeous, gorgeous V. That's beautiful. That's how it looks like on the inside, on the outside. And now what we need to do is top stitch this down because it's all loose. I'm going to extend it all on the table, have it really neat. I'm going to hand baste this again, although I already have some hand basting. And then after that, just top stitch all around, edge stitch. And that'll fix it in place. And then that's the bodice done. I'm going to show you something super general about the casing that is super easy. Before doing the casing, I have already done the side seams of the skirt. Very simple, just 2 side seams pressed open. I've even done the hem. And so on the top of the waist, I have this casing piece. It's a really long piece. And all I did was from one of the long ends, I folded it up by 3/8 of an inch. So that's what's there. Then the other end of the casing is raw. And I placed it on top of the skirt. So both the casing and the skirt are right sides up. Wrong side of casing touching right side of skirt. And I pinned it all the way. I started pinning from the center back over here where I did a mark. Pin, 1 to 1. Arriving to the center. There is the center. But 1/2 inch from there, I folded that back. I cut the excess off, folded it back. So I've got it all pinned. This is where the drawstring is going to come out of on both sides over here, where you can regulate, do a little tie. So on this top where it's all raw, I'm just going to do a quick basting stitch all around the edge just to hold it in place. That's going to be hidden when we sew the bodice to the skirt. And then with a nice thread that matches, I'm going to top stitch the bottom there after I've done that. That's how the casing is going to be made. It's super, super easy. Once the casing is done, top stitched all the way around the bottom and just held there in place, we sew it to the bodice. Bodice goes 1-to-1 to the skirt. We attach on the drawstring afterwards. We just put it in through and thread it. Super easy. Check it out. It's so pretty. Now, I knew I was going to be sewing this while I was at my parents', so I brought this in my suitcase. My husband bought this for me on my fabric shopping spree that he treats me to every year. I remember where I get every single piece of fabric that I have that memory here. There's always some emotional component to my fabric. So yeah, this is amazing. I love these colors. Really, really bright pink with black and white. I think it suits me really well. And even though it's a print, I think you can still see the exposed facing. So here it is right there, top stitched really neatly up to there, up to the waist and around there. Now, I wouldn't have done this in a contrast color because the facing only reaches there. And then on the skirt, you would have all the print. So I think that would look strange. So I just kept the print all the way. Of course, if you did this in a solid, you will really see this feature a lot more. But you can still see it. Look at this. So beautiful. I love doing that. Hand basting is always worth it. I have satin bias tape here store-bought. I do have a small amount of this fabric left for a little cami or something, so I'm really hesitant when I have those amounts that I know could be a garment to just cut through the bias and make bias tape. So yeah, I didn't make bias tape, but this is very nice, very discreet. Remember, I have a super good video on my channel that shows you in detail how to do this really nicely. Very neat. There is the casing. There is my drawstring from the same fabric. Now, I don't have the drawstring made all out of fabric. What I do is get 1/4 inch elastic, about 20 inches, 50 centimeters. So there's my elastic. And then on the ends, I sew the drawstring. So my drawstring is basically fabric, elastic, fabric. So all around the back here, I have the elastic and it's so much more comfortable and it makes the gathers more even. I find that it works really well. So if you want to try that out, I think you would like that. My mom did my hand hem right there, which is really helpful. The skirt is simple. It's just side seams basically. So I don't have ways to style this over here at my parents'. I just have shoes that I borrowed from my mom. So let's see it on. And yeah, no fashion show, just see it on and how it fits and how it flows. I absolutely love how it turned out. Here is my Jenna kaftan from Sinclair Patterns. I'll just call it a dress because for me it's a dress. It's amazing. This is a rayon linen blend, more rayon than linen in a size 14 tall file. Now this is full on winter here. It's very low temperatures and I'm here in my little sandals and my sleeveless dress just so you can see how it fits. But isn't the grass green and lovely even though it's winter? This dress has cup size options. There's a dart here on the front and I've got the CD cup size option. There's a waist seam here and a casing with a drawstring. There you can see this is totally adjustable. I do a little trick where I put elastic in here and then the drawstrings just on this front section. So whatever you see coming out is still the fabric drawstring, but inside the dress is elastic. So check this out. So much more comfortable than just having a string in there. So I do that all the time. The only adjustment I made was to make the bodice shorter at the back by 5/8 of an inch, but just in the center, tapering to nothing on the sides. And I think that was fine for me. It's a mini sway back adjustment. Otherwise, the feet in the front, everything is perfect with the toe file here. And the technique for the casing is easier than what you think. The dart under here is very discreet, but really helps with the fit. You can see the waist is nice and even around. Nothing's tugging at the center front. So cup size options in woven patterns are always amazing. Here is this beautiful exposed facing. I'm working with a print here, and I wouldn't have done this in a contrast color because the facing would just stop there. The skirt would look strange, I think. I'm not a fan of color blocking this with a print. I think it looks really, really neat. Technique gives you a beautiful V. I love that. Got binding finishing the sleeveless armhole there. You can see the coverage around the neckline is really good. Nothing showing when I bend over, it's all fine. The back, I think the facing looks really pretty. Now this is an armhole that is designed to have sleeves initially, so there's no modification, but there's no gaping. I left it as it is. I didn't make it narrower. Sometimes I do, but I like this. I like this look. Of course you can add sleeves. I'm just the person that likes sleeveless all the time. I can't wait until it's hot in a few more months to wear this out. It's so lovely and so comfortable. I always love an adjustable waist moment. So nice, and it looks amazing on everyone. If I would have had time, I know I would have made two. I would have loved to make one with the long sleeves. That would have been amazing. I think this would work well as a little peplum top as well. Just make that shorter. And this would bring in the waist, and it would look amazing with a pencil skirt or with flare jeans. I think would look amazing. So, but yeah, limited time over here, limited resources. I'm glad I was able to make it. It's such a nice dress and super comfortable to wear. I think would look great on everyone. So I recommend. Great sewing experience, great fit. What can I say? I loved it. Remember, my affiliate link is in the top of the comment section. That's all from me. I'm gonna go back inside because it's pretty cold. Let me tell you how cold it is. It's probably like 3 degrees Celsius, which would be around, I don't know, 35 Fahrenheit-ish. It's cold. So yeah, I'll see you soon. Probably the next time I see you, I'll be back at home in Brazil. So yeah, I'll see you then. Bye.